Marie Curie of Poland, whose full name was Maria Salomia Skłodowska, was born on the 7th of November in the year 1867 in Warsaw, Poland, which was then under the Russian Empire. What shaped the little girl born into a troubled and divided land? How did she rise from the struggles of her family's hardships to become one of the most groundbreaking scientists in history? And what lessons of determination and sacrifice guided her long before the world knew her name? Maria was the youngest of 5 children in a family that valued education, though they had suffered many losses. Her father, W. Ladislaw Skłodowski, was a teacher of mathematics and physics who once directed 2 schools. After losing his position for his support of Polish independence, he continued teaching and even brought laboratory equipment home to give his children a chance to learn science firsthand. Her mother, Bronislawa, ran a respected girls' boarding school in Warsaw but gave it up after Maria's birth. She was deeply religious, but tuberculosis claimed her life when Maria was only 10 years old. Maria's childhood was marked by sorrow. She lost her older sister Zofia to typhus just a few years before her mother's death. These tragedies shaped her view of life and faith, leading her to step away from religion and embrace agnosticism. Despite these losses, Maria excelled in school. She graduated from a secondary school for girls in June of 1883 with top honors, earning a gold medal. Her opportunities were limited because universities in Russian-controlled Poland did not admit women. Still, Maria refused to give up. Along with her sister Bronislawa, she secretly attended the Flying University, a hidden place of learning that welcomed women. This was the beginning of her path toward science and discovery. After finishing her schooling in Warsaw, Maria dreamed of further studies, but doors remained closed to women in her homeland. She and her sister Bronislawa made a pact. Maria would support Bronislawa's medical education in Paris, and later, Bronislawa would help Maria follow the same path. To honor this agreement, Maria worked as a private tutor and then as a governess for families in the countryside. During these years, she continued to study on her own, reading scientific books and practicing experiments whenever she could. While working as a governess in the village of Shuki, Maria fell in love with Kazimierz Zorowski, a young man from a wealthy family. Though he returned her feelings, his parents refused to allow him to marry someone without money or social standing. The rejection left Maria heartbroken, but it also fueled her determination to seek independence through education and science. In the early 1890s, Maria gained valuable training at a laboratory in Warsaw run by her cousin, Joseph Boguski, who had once worked with the famous chemist Dmitry Mendeleev. This hands-on experience gave her confidence and prepared her for the next step in her journey. Finally, in late 1891, with enough money saved and her sister's promise fulfilled, Maria left Poland for France. In Paris, she adopted the French version of her name, Marie, and began her studies at the University of Paris. Life was difficult. She lived in a small, cold attic, often wearing all of her clothes at once to stay warm. At times, she even forgot to eat because of her intense focus on learning. Despite these struggles, she completed a degree in physics in 1893 and soon earned another degree in mathematics. Her dream of becoming a scientist was at last becoming real. During her early years in Paris, Marie was already making her mark as a promising scientist. She began investigating the magnetic properties of steel, which brought her into contact with Pierre Curie, a quiet but brilliant physicist. The two shared a deep passion for science, and what began as professional collaborations soon grew into a partnership that changed both their lives. Pierre was deeply impressed by Marie's determination, while she admired his creativity and gentle nature. He proposed marriage, but Marie hesitated at first, unsure whether she would stay in France or return to Poland. Pierre, however, declared that he would move with her to Poland if needed, even if it meant teaching French there. This devotion convinced Marie that their bond was real. In July of 1895, Marie and Pierre married in a simple ceremony in the town of Sceaux, just outside Paris. Instead of a traditional wedding dress, Marie wore a dark blue outfit, practical enough to use later in the laboratory. They were not interested in wealth or glamour. Their joy came from their shared work and long bicycle rides through the countryside. Together, they set up a modest laboratory, often working in poor conditions with limited resources. Still, their shared curiosity drove them forward. By combining their talents, they created one of the most remarkable scientific teams in history. For Marie, this partnership was not only about love, but also about finding an equal who respected her abilities at a time when many doubted women in science. With Pierre by her side, she was ready to embark on the research that would soon make them both famous. In the late 1890s, the scientific world was buzzing with new discoveries. Wilhelm Röntgen had revealed X-rays, and Henry Becquerel had shown that uranium salts gave off invisible rays of their own. Marie Curie chose to study these strange emissions for her doctoral research, using a sensitive device called an electrometer that Pierre and his brother had designed years earlier. Her careful experiments revealed something remarkable. The rays came from the atom itself, not from a chemical reaction. This idea challenged long-held beliefs and opened the door to an entirely new branch of science. As she expanded her studies, she discovered that certain minerals, like pitchblende, gave off far stronger radiation than uranium alone. Marie suspected that pitchblende contained unknown elements that were even more active. Pierre, fascinated by her findings, joined her efforts. The couple worked side by side in a small, drafty shed that served as their laboratory. The building was poorly ventilated and offered little protection from the dangerous materials they handled, but their determination was unshakable. They labored for hours grinding ores, boiling solutions, and recording measurements, often in freezing or sweltering conditions. In July of 1898, they announced the discovery of a new element, which Marie named polonium in honor of her homeland of Poland. Just months later, in December, they revealed the existence of a second, even more powerful element, radium. The word itself came from the Latin radius, meaning ray. These discoveries were not only scientific milestones, but also emotional triumphs. Marie had proven herself as a leader in science, securing recognition in a field that had long excluded women. Together, the Curies also introduced the term radioactivity, forever changing the language of physics and chemistry. By the turn of the century, Marie and Pierre Curie's discoveries were attracting worldwide attention. In December of 1903, the Swedish Academy of Sciences awarded the Nobel Prize in Physics to Pierre Curie, Marie Curie, and Henry Becquerel for their pioneering research on radiation. At first, the committee planned to honor only Pierre and Becquerel, but Pierre insisted that Marie's contributions be recognized. Thanks to his intervention, she became the first woman ever to receive a Nobel Prize. Despite this triumph, the Curies lived modestly. They refused to patent their methods for isolating radium, choosing instead to share their findings freely with the scientific community. This decision allowed research on radioactivity to grow rapidly, but it also meant they did not profit financially from discoveries that later fueled industries. Tragedy struck in April of 1906, when Pierre was killed instantly in a street accident in Paris. He was crossing Rue Dauphine in heavy rain when he slipped and fell beneath a horse-drawn vehicle. His sudden death devastated Marie, who now faced the challenge of raising their two daughters, Irene and Eve, alone while continuing their work. Later that same year, she was offered Pierre's teaching position at the University of Paris, making her the first woman professor in the university's history. She devoted herself to research, eventually achieving another groundbreaking success. In 1911, Marie won a second Nobel Prize, this time in chemistry, for her isolation of pure radium and further work on polonium. She became the first person, and remains one of the very few, to win Nobel Prizes in two different scientific fields. Even as she rose to international fame, Marie endured personal struggles, including public criticism and loneliness, but her commitment to science never wavered. When the First World War broke out in 1914, Marie Curie quickly recognized how her scientific knowledge could save lives. With her daughter Irene by her side, she organized mobile X-ray units, later known as little Curies, that traveled to the front lines. These vans, equipped with X-ray machines, generators, and trained staff, helped doctors locate bullets and shattered bones without the need for risky exploratory surgery. Marie herself learned to drive, repair equipment, and teach field medics how to use the machines. It is estimated that over 1 million wounded soldiers benefited from her efforts. Her wartime work showed the practical importance of science, but it also placed her under great strain. She spent long days traveling between battlefields, often exposing herself to radiation and harsh conditions. Despite the risks, she refused to step away, convinced that her duty was to apply her discoveries to ease human suffering. After the war, Marie returned to academic life with renewed determination. She helped establish the Radium Institute in Paris in 1914, though its construction was delayed until after the conflict. The institute became a leading center for research on radioactivity and medical applications of radiation. Marie directed the institute and mentored a new generation of scientists, including her daughter Irene, who would later share a Nobel Prize of her own. Marie also traveled widely, raising funds to support her research. In 1921, she visited the United States, where President Warren Harding presented her with a gift of 1 gram of radium purchased through donations by American women. This journey brought her international admiration and symbolized her role as both a scientist and a pioneer for women in education and research. Her influence extended beyond laboratories, inspiring countless women to pursue science in an age when few opportunities existed. In her final years, Marie Curie remained deeply committed to research, teaching, and the institutions she had built. Though her health began to decline, she continued working tirelessly at the Radium Institute in Paris, guiding students and overseeing experiments. By the 1920s, the toll of constant radiation exposure was becoming clear. Her hands bore burns from handling radioactive materials, and her eyesight weakened, yet she refused to abandon her scientific mission. Marie's reputation as a symbol of perseverance grew worldwide. She traveled often, speaking at conferences and encouraging greater roles for women in education and science. Her efforts contributed to breaking barriers for women across Europe and beyond, showing that determination and talent could triumph over prejudice. Despite her international fame, Marie lived simply, avoiding the luxuries that her achievements could have afforded her. She remained focused on her daughters and her scientific family at the Radium Institute. Both Irene and Eve admired their mother's devotion, though in different ways. Irene followed her into physics and chemistry, while Eve became a writer and musician. By the early 1930s, Marie's health worsened. Years of unprotected exposure to radioactive elements had damaged her bone marrow. On the 4th of July in 1934, she passed away at a sanatorium in Passy, Haute-Savoie, France. Doctors recorded the cause as aplastic anemia, a condition then poorly understood, but now linked to prolonged radiation exposure. Her death marked the end of a remarkable life, but her influence only grew stronger. Today, she is remembered as the first woman to win a Nobel Prize, the first person to win 2 in different sciences, and a pioneer whose discoveries transformed physics, chemistry, and medicine. Her legacy continues to inspire scientists and dreamers around the world. Thank you so much for watching.